Queen Zalthara stood at the massive window of her palace, watching the stars beyond. Her hands, made of living crystal like all her people, glowed softly in the dim light. For 10 years, war had burned across the galaxy. Her people were dying. The humans were dying. Even their enemies, the bug-like Korthuk, were losing millions. She had to try something new. Something no one had ever done before. "Your Majesty," her advisor said, entering the room. "The human ship has arrived." Zalthara turned. "And our future son-in-law?" "He is." "Not what we expected." The queen raised an eyebrow. The humans had agreed to the marriage alliance. Her daughter Valtara would marry a human representative. In return, both species would fight together against the Korthuk. It was a desperate plan, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "Show me," she said. The hologram appeared in the center of the room. Zalthara expected to see a diplomat in fancy clothes, or perhaps a general covered in medals. Instead, she saw a young man in simple clothes walking down the ship's ramp. He was 27 years old according to the files. Average height. Brown hair. Nothing special about him at all. "This is Marcus Chun," the advisor said. "Former Marine. Now he works as what humans call a problem solver." "Problem solver?" Zalthara asked. "We are not sure what that means." The queen watched as Marcus Chun looked around the landing bay. Even through the hologram, she could see his eyes moving, taking in everything. The way he stood, the way he held his head. Something about him made her feel uneasy. "Bring him to the throne room," she ordered. An hour later, Marcus Chen stood before the crystal throne. The great hall was filled with noble Zephyrians, all glowing softly in different colors. Their crystalline bodies caught the light and threw it back in beautiful patterns. Most humans who visited were amazed by the sight. Marcus Chun looked around once, then focused on the queen. "Your Majesty," he said, and then something amazing happened. He began speaking in perfect Zephyrian language. Not just the words, but the right tone, the proper respect forms, even the subtle harmonics that showed he understood their culture. "We are honored by your presence in our home," he said in their tongue. "I come seeking harmony between our peoples, as the crystal seeks the light." The hall went silent. Even Zalthara felt surprised. Learning Zephyrian was incredibly difficult for other species. The sounds, the meaning layers, the emotional undertones, it usually took years to master. "You speak our language well," she said carefully. "I had good teachers," Marcus replied, switching back to standard Galactic. "And I wanted to show respect." Over the next few hours, Zalthara watched Marcus move through her court. Noble families that had been fighting each other for months suddenly found themselves talking calmly with this human standing between them. When Lord Kexmore started to argue about military spending, Marcus asked a simple question that made everyone think differently about the problem. When Lady Ciliana complained about refugees taking resources, Marcus suggested a solution that would help both the refugees and the noble houses make money. When the military commanders grumbled about fighting alongside humans, Marcus told a funny story about his own mistakes that made them laugh. It was like watching someone defuse bombs with words. "Interesting," Princess Valtara said, appearing beside her mother's throne. "He is not what I expected either. What do you think of him?" Zalthara asked her daughter. Valtara was quiet for a moment. "I think he is dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "Look at them." Valtara pointed to the nobles below. An hour ago, they were ready to fight each other. Now they are working together. He did not threaten them or bribe them. He just talked to them. Zalthara looked more carefully. Her daughter was right. The mood in the hall had completely changed. People who had been angry were now calm. People who had been suspicious were now curious. And Marcus Chun stood in the center of it all, looking completely relaxed. Later that evening, Zalthara met with Marcus privately in her study. The room was smaller, more comfortable, with soft crystal formations that glowed warmly. "Tea?" she offered. "Thank you," Marcus said, accepting the cup. He sipped it carefully. "This is delicious." "Is it from the southern crystal gardens?" Again, Zalthara felt that surprise. "How did you know?" "The mineral content gives it a specific taste. I read about Zephyrian agriculture before coming here. You have studied us extensively." Marcus nodded. "Your Majesty, if I am going to marry your daughter and help our peoples work together, I need to understand who you are. Not just the political facts, but the real culture. The real people." Zalthara set down her tea. "Most species see us as strange crystal beings. They think we are all the same." "You are not all the same," Marcus said. "Your people value harmony, but that does not mean you do not have individuals with different ideas. You prefer working together, but you still have competition and ambition. You are artistic and creative, but you can also be fierce warriors when needed." The Queen studied his face. "You see us clearly." "I try to see everyone clearly, Your Majesty. It is the only way to solve problems." "And what problems do you see here?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Your people are not natural warriors. You are being forced to fight a war that goes against your basic nature. The stress is tearing your society apart from the inside." Zalthara felt a chill. He was absolutely right, but she had never heard anyone say it so directly. "The Korthik will not stop fighting," she said. "They want to consume everything." "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe they have their own problems we do not understand yet. You think you can solve this war?" Marcus smiled for the first time since arriving. It was a quiet smile, but somehow it made him look much more dangerous. "Your Majesty, I have made a career out of solving problems everyone else thinks are impossible. But I cannot do it alone. I need partners. Real partners who trust me enough to try new things." Zalthara looked at this young human. 27 years old, calm, intelligent, polite, and somehow more frightening than any general she had ever met. "The wedding is in 3 months, she said. "Then we have 3 months to change everything." Marcus replied as he left the room. Queen Zalthara realized something that made her crystal skin glow brighter with worry. This marriage had been her idea, her desperate plan to save her people, but she was no longer sure who was really in control. The alarm bells rang through the crystal palace like breaking glass. Queen Zalthara rushed to the war room, her advisors trailing behind her. The massive holographic display showed the terrible truth. A Korthik fleet had broken through their outer defenses and was heading straight for the mining colonies of Zeph Prime. "How many ships?" she demanded. 300 heavy cruisers, Admiral Koroth reported. His crystal form was glowing bright red with stress. "They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Our scouts never saw them coming. Recommendations? We pull back our fleets from the Nexus system and make a stand at the Thornwall asteroid field," General Yalara said. "We can use the asteroids for cover and force them to come at us in smaller groups." Marcus Chun entered the war room quietly. As the future prince consort, he had the right to observe military briefings, but everyone expected him to stay silent in the corner. He had been on their world for only 2 weeks. Instead, Marcus walked up to the holographic display. "May I ask a question?" he said politely. Admiral Koroth looked annoyed. "We are in the middle of a crisis, human." "I understand," Marcus said, "but I am curious about something. How do the Korthik coordinate their fleets so perfectly?" "What do you mean?" Queen Zalthara asked. Marcus pointed at the display. "Look at this formation. 300 ships moving as if they were one mind. No human fleet could do this. No Zephyrian fleet either. How did they manage it?" General Yalara shrugged. The Korthik have always been good at working together. But how? Marcus insisted. Do they use quantum communication? Hyperspace relay networks? What is the actual mechanism? The military officers looked at each other. Finally, Admiral Korath spoke. Intelligence reports suggest they use some kind of chemical communication. Pheromones released through their life support systems. Pheromones, Marcus repeated slowly. Chemical signals traveling through ship systems. Yes, but what does that matter? Yalara asked impatiently. We need to decide where to make our stand. Marcus turned to face the room. It matters because chemical signals can be disrupted. Do you have electromagnetic pulse weapons? Of course, Korath said. But EMP weapons are useless against Korthik ships. Their hulls are biomechanical. They regenerate damage too quickly. I am not talking about using EMP weapons against their hulls, Marcus said. I am talking about using them against their pheromone communication system. The room went quiet. Think about it, Marcus continued. They rely on chemical signals to coordinate. Those chemicals have to travel through their ship systems, air ducts, life support, command networks. What happens if you disrupt those systems with precisely tuned electromagnetic pulses? Princess Veltara, who had been watching from the back of the room, stepped forward. Their fleet coordination would collapse. Exactly, Marcus said. 300 ships acting as one mind becomes 300 ships acting independently. And ships acting independently make mistakes. Admiral Korath looked skeptical. This is pure theory. We have never tried such a thing. Which is exactly why it might work, Marcus replied. Your current strategy is to pull back your fleets and fight defensively. What if instead you did the opposite? The opposite? Queen Zolthara asked. Marcus walked around the holographic display. The Korthik expect you to retreat. They have planned for that. Their formation is designed to pursue and destroy a retreating enemy. But what if you advance instead? Advance into 300 enemy ships? Yalara said. That would be suicide. Not if you advance with EMP weapons designed specifically to disrupt chemical communication, Marcus said. Hit them hard and fast before they can adapt. Break their coordination, then use your superior individual ship skills to pick them apart. The military officers began arguing immediately. It was too risky. It was unproven. It could result in the destruction of their entire fleet. But Queen Zalthara was watching Marcus carefully. You have more ideas than just the EMP weapons. Marcus nodded. Your people have been fighting the Korthik like you would fight humans. You assume they have flexible command structures, individual initiative, backup plans. But what if they do not? What do you mean? What if the Korthik are more like a single organism with many parts? What happens when you cut off communication between the brain and the hand? Princess Veltara understood first. The hand stops working. More than that, Marcus said. The hand becomes confused. It might even start working against other parts of the body. He touched the holographic controls, zooming in on the Korthik fleet formation. Look at how they are arranged. Perfect order. Perfect spacing. Perfect timing. This is not 300 independent commanders making coordinated decisions. This is one mind controlling 300 bodies. You think they have a command ship? Admiral Korath realized. I think they have a command ship that is sending out constant pheromone instructions to the entire fleet, Marcus corrected. Disrupt that communication, and the fleet does not just lose coordination. It loses the ability to function at all. The room erupted in discussion. Officers pulled up intelligence files, technical specifications, historical battle data. For the first time in months, Queen Zolthara heard her people talking about how to win instead of how to minimize their losses. Even if you are correct, Admiral Korath said finally, We would need to modify our EMP weapons. The frequency, the pulse duration, the targeting systems, everything would have to be recalibrated. How long would that take? Marcus asked. 3 days minimum. Marcus looked at the tactical display. The Korthek fleet will reach the mining colonies in 6 hours. The enthusiasm in the room died. However, Princess Veltara said quietly, "We do have one ship already equipped with experimental EMP systems. The research vessel Harmony's Edge. One ship against 300, Yelara muttered. One ship to test the theory, Marcus corrected. If it works, you modify the rest of your fleet. If it does not work, you fall back to the original defensive plan." Queen Zalthara looked around the room. Her military advisors were split. Half thought the human was crazy. Half thought he might be right. "The risk is enormous," she said. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, "the risk of doing nothing is larger. The Korthek are not just trying to win territory. They are trying to eliminate your entire species. Every defensive battle you fight makes you weaker. Eventually, you will run out of places to retreat to." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Admiral Koroth. "Prepare the Harmony's Edge for immediate deployment. Full experimental EMP package. But also prepare the main fleet for the defensive strategy." "Your Majesty?" "We will try both plans. If the human is wrong, we lose one research vessel. If he is right, we win our first real victory in this war." 2 hours later, Queen Zalthara watched from her command center as the Harmony's Edge approached the Korthek fleet. The small research ship looked like a minnow swimming toward a school of sharks. "EMP weapons charging," came the report from the ship's captain. "Targeting the formation center, as the human suggested." Marcus stood beside the Queen, calm and quiet. Princess Veltara was on his other side, her crystal form glowing with tension. "Weapons firing," the captain reported. On the display, invisible electromagnetic pulses reached out toward the Korthek fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the perfect formation began to fall apart. Ships started turning in different directions. Some accelerated, others slowed down. 2 vessels actually collided with each other. "By the crystal depths," Admiral Koroth whispered. "It worked. Send in our attack squadrons," Queen Zalthara ordered. "Hit them while they are confused." The battle lasted only 30 minutes. When it was over, the Korthek fleet had been completely destroyed. Not one Zivrian ship was lost. In the celebration that followed, Queen Zalthara pulled Marcus aside. "How did you know?" she asked. Marcus smiled that quiet, dangerous smile again. "Your Majesty, I spent my career solving problems by looking at them differently than everyone else. Your military has been trying to fight the Korthek for 10 years. But they have been fighting the wrong enemy." "What do you mean?" "They have been fighting individual Korthek ships. But the real enemy is the system that connects those ships together. Destroy the system, and the ships become helpless." Queen Zalthara realized something that made her crystal skin glow with both hope and fear. This young human did not just see tactics and strategies. He saw the hidden patterns that connected everything together. And that made him the most dangerous person in the galaxy. News of the great victory spread across Zephyrian space like light through crystal. For the first time in 10 years, people celebrated instead of mourned. But in the shadows, other eyes were watching. Human intelligence agent Sarah Mitchell sat in her office 3 star systems away, reading the battle reports with growing concern. Marcus Chen was supposed to be a symbol, a living treaty to keep the Alliance strong. He was not supposed to be winning wars. "Get me everything we have on Chun," she told her aide. "Military records, psychological profiles, mission reports from his freelance work, everything." Meanwhile, in the deep space between stars, a Korthek intelligence ship received its own disturbing reports. The crushing defeat at Zeph Prime was impossible to explain using normal military analysis. Something had changed in the war. The Korthek intelligence officer, its insect-like head twitching with agitation, sent an urgent message back to the homeworld. The priority was clear: find out everything about this human called Marcus Chen. But Marcus himself was not thinking about intelligence agencies or enemy analysis. He was walking through the civilian districts of the Zephyrian capital, trying to understand the people he would soon call family. Princess Veltara walked beside him, serving as his guide. Over the past month, they had grown comfortable with each other. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of real friendship. "Tell me about the Crystal Gardens," Marcus said as they entered a vast dome filled with growing structures that seemed alive. "They are not gardens in the way you might think," Veltara explained. "We do not plant seeds. Instead, we sing to the crystal matrices and they grow into the shapes we need." Marcus watched a group of Zephyrian children standing around a small crystal formation, their voices creating harmonics that made the crystal pulse and expand. As they sang, the crystal grew into the shape of a playground, complete with slides and climbing structures. "It responds to your intentions?" he asked. "More than that. It responds to our dreams, our emotions, our hopes for what it could become." Veltara touched a nearby crystal wall and it glowed softly. "This is why the war has been so hard for us. We are builders, creators, artists. Fighting goes against our basic nature." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. They continued walking through the districts, and everywhere he looked, he saw the same thing. Zephyrians working together to create beautiful, functional structures. Musicians whose songs could reshape matter. Artists whose emotions could bring crystal sculptures to life. "Your people are not warriors," he said finally. "No," Veltara agreed sadly. "But the Korthik give us no choice." "There are always choices," Marcus replied. "Sometimes we just cannot see them yet." That evening, Marcus joined the royal family for dinner. It was an informal meal, with just Queen Zalthara, Princess Veltara, and a few close advisors. "I have been thinking about our conversation yesterday," Marcus said to the Queen as they ate. "About Zephyrian industrial capacity. What about it?" Admiral Koroth asked. He had been attending more civilian meetings since the victory at Zeph Prime, wanting to understand how the human's mind worked. "You have converted most of your manufacturing to weapons production," Marcus said. "Ships, bombs, defensive systems. All very impressive. But what did you manufacture before the war?" Queen Zalthar smiled for the first time in months. "Beautiful things. Habitat modules for new colonies. Atmospheric processors for hostile worlds. Terraforming equipment that could turn dead planets into gardens. And you were good at it?" "The best in the galaxy," Veltara said proudly. "Species would travel hundreds of light years to buy Zephyrian terraforming technology." Marcus set down his eating utensil. "What if I told you that your terraforming technology could end this war?" The table went silent. "I do not understand," Admiral Koroth said. Marcus leaned forward. "Think about it from a different perspective. Why do species go to war?" "Territory," the Admiral said immediately. "Resources, power." "Sometimes," Marcus agreed. "But often, they go to war because they need something, and they cannot get it any other way. The Korthik have been expanding for decades, consuming world after world. What if they are not expanding because they want to conquer, but because they need to survive?" Queen Zalthara raised an eyebrow. "You think the Korthik are running out of habitable worlds?" "I think it is possible," Marcus said. "And if they are, then giving them what they need might be smarter than trying to destroy them. Give them worlds?" Koroth looked shocked. "They are trying to kill us." "Give them empty worlds," Marcus corrected. "Dead planets that you could transform into living ones. Make yourselves indispensable instead of just another enemy to fight." The room erupted in discussion. Some thought the idea was brilliant. Others thought it was insane. But Marcus raised his hand for silence. "There is more to it than just the Korthok," he said. "This war has created millions of refugees from all three species. Humans, Zephyrians, even displaced Korthok from conquered worlds. What do all these refugees need?" "New homes," Eltara said quietly. "Exactly. New homes on worlds that do not exist yet. Worlds that could be built using Zephyrian terraforming technology." Marcus stood up and walked to the window overlooking the Crystal City. "Your Majesty, what if the Zephyrian Empire stopped trying to be a military power and became something entirely different? What if you became the galaxy's premier terraforming civilization? It would take years to convert our industrial base back," Queen Zalthara said thoughtfully. "But once you did, you would have something no one else could provide," Marcus replied. "Hope. Every species in the galaxy would need your services. You would not need military alliances, because everyone would want to protect you." Admiral Koroth shook his head. "The Korthok would never agree to this. They only understand strength. Do they?" Marcus asked. "Or is that just what we assume because we have only ever fought them? What if we offered them something they needed more than territory?" "Such as?" Marcus turned back to face the room. "Breeding worlds. Safe places for their young to develop. The Korthok reproduce quickly, but their offspring need specific environmental conditions. What if their expansion is not about conquest, but about finding suitable planets for their next generation?" Princess Veltara stood up suddenly. "You want to communicate with them?" "I want to understand them," Marcus corrected. "Before we decide they are monsters, maybe we should find out what they actually want." Queen Zalthara was quiet for a long moment. "This is a completely different way of thinking about the war." "Yes," Marcus said. "But what you have been doing for 10 years is not working. Maybe it is time to try something different." "Even if you are right about Korthok motivations," Admiral Koroth said, "how would we convince them to negotiate instead of fight?" Marcus smiled. "We show them that cooperation is more profitable than conquest. We start by helping their enemies." "Their enemies?" "Refugees from Korthok-occupied worlds. If we can give those people new homes on terraformed planets, word will spread throughout Korthok space. Suddenly, instead of seeing us as obstacles to their expansion, they will see us as providers of solutions." The Queen stood up and walked to join Marcus at the window. Below them, the Crystal City glowed with soft light, beautiful and peaceful. "You are asking us to completely change who we are as a civilization," she said. "No," Marcus replied. "I am asking you to become who you truly are. You are not warriors, Your Majesty. You are builders, creators, artists. The war has forced you to pretend to be something else, but pretending is exhausting." Queen Zalthara looked at her daughter, then at her advisors. For the first time since the war began, she saw hope in their eyes instead of fear. "How would we begin?" she asked. "We start with a demonstration," Marcus said. "There is a dead planet in the neutral zone between our territories. We terraform it openly, publicly, and offer it as a new home for refugees from all three species. Human refugees, Zephyrian refugees, even Korthok refugees if any want to come. And if it works?" Marcus turned to face the Queen directly. "If it works, Your Majesty, you will have started the first truly integrated multi-species colony in galactic history. You will have proven that cooperation creates more value than conquest. And you will have shown the galaxy a different way to solve problems." Queen Zalthara realized that this young human was not just proposing a new military strategy. He was proposing a completely new way of thinking about civilization itself. And somehow, for the first time in years, that felt like hope. The living crystal cathedral had been growing for 3 months. What started as a small ceremonial chamber had expanded into the largest structure ever created on the Zephyrian homeworld. Its walls pulsed with soft light, and its spires reached toward the stars like frozen music. Queen Zalthara stood in the royal preparation chamber, watching her daughter get ready for the wedding. Princess Valtara wore traditional crystal jewelry that sang softly when she moved, creating harmony with her natural bioelectric field. "Are you nervous?" the queen asked. "About the wedding?" "No," Valtara replied. "About what Marcus has planned?" Yes, over the past month, wedding invitations had gone out to every known species in the galaxy. Not just allies, but neutral worlds, trading partners, even former enemies. Some responses had been shocking. The Andromedan Collective, who had been isolationist for centuries, sent a diplomatic vessel. The Silicon-based architects of the Outer Rim dispatched their first ambassador in 50 years. "How many representatives are coming?" Queen Zalthara asked. 237 different species, her aide replied, including some we have never even heard of. The queen shook her head in amazement. A simple political marriage had somehow become the largest diplomatic gathering in recorded history. "Mother," Valtara said quietly, "I think Marcus planned this from the beginning." Before the queen could respond, alarms started ringing. Not the harsh battle alarms, but the softer tones that meant urgent diplomatic communication. "Admiral," Korra's voice came through the communication crystal. "Your Majesty, we are receiving a priority message from our deep space monitoring stations. A massive Korthic fleet has been detected moving toward our system." Queen Zalthara felt her crystal skin grow cold. "How large?" "Over 1,000 ships, Your Majesty. The largest fleet we have ever seen." "Time to arrival?" 6 hours. They will arrive just as the wedding ceremony begins." The queen closed her eyes. The Korthic had planned this perfectly. With representatives from hundreds of species watching, they would destroy the Zephyrian homeworld and end the alliance before it could truly begin. "Cancel the ceremony," she said. "Begin evacuation procedures." "Your Majesty," came Marcus's voice from the doorway. "I respectfully disagree." He entered the chamber, wearing traditional Zephyrian formal robes that somehow looked natural on his human frame. Behind him came Princess Valtara, her crystal jewelry still singing softly. "You cannot fight 1,000 ships," Queen Zalthara said. "You are right," Marcus agreed. "We cannot fight them. But we do not have to fight them." "What do you mean?" Marcus smiled that quiet, dangerous smile. "Your Majesty, the Korthic are making a mistake. They think this wedding is just a political ceremony. They do not understand what it actually represents." "And what does it represent?" "The beginning of a new kind of civilization." Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the massive cathedral. Hundreds of ships from different species were landing in the ceremonial space around it. Diplomats, traders, scientists, artists, all gathering to witness something they had never seen before. "The wedding contract includes some very specific language," he said. "Language that I suggested and your legal advisors approved." Queen Zalthara frowned. "What language?" Princess Valtara answered for him. "The establishment of the Galactic Cooperative Council, a voluntary association of species committed to mutual benefit and peaceful development." "But that is just ceremonial language," the queen protested. "No," Marcus said. "It is a legal framework. Every species that witnesses this ceremony and accepts the wedding gifts we are providing becomes a founding member of the council." "Wedding gifts?" Marcus gestured to his aide, who activated a holographic display. It showed the dead planet in the neutral zone, but it was no longer dead. Green continents were visible through swirling clouds. Oceans reflected sunlight. Cities of different architectural styles dotted the surface. "The terraforming project is complete," Marcus said. "New Eden is ready for colonization. Every species represented here today gets territory on the planet, proportional to their population needs. Queen Zolthara stared at the display. How is this possible? The project was supposed to take years. It did take years, Princess Voltara said with a smile. Marcus has been planning this since before he arrived here. The terraforming equipment was already on its way when he first walked into our palace. The implications hit the Queen like a crystal avalanche. The humans were planning this alliance from the beginning. Not the humans, Marcus corrected. Me. I convinced my government that this approach would work better than continued warfare. But they do not know about all the details. Before anyone could respond, Admiral Korath's voice came through the communication system again. Your Majesty, we are receiving communication requests from the Korthic fleet. They want to negotiate. Negotiate? Queen Zolthara was shocked. The Korthic do not negotiate. These ones do, Marcus said calmly. How do you know? Because I have been talking to them for months. The room went silent. Marcus continued. Your Majesty, do you remember when I said the Korthic might have their own problems? I was right. Their empire is fracturing. Different commanders are fighting each other for resources and breeding worlds. The fleet approaching us is not here to attack. Then why are they here? They are here because I invited them. Queen Zolthara sat down heavily. Explain. 3 months ago, I made contact with Commander Vextil of the Korthic 4th Fleet. His territory has been under attack from other Korthic commanders. His people are starving. His breeding colonies are failing. Marcus touched the holographic controls, and the display changed to show intelligence reports and communication logs. I offered him a deal. Safe territory on New Eden for his civilians. Peaceful development opportunities for his people. All he had to do was come to our wedding and publicly accept membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council. And he agreed? He agreed. And so did 12 other Korthak commanders who are tired of endless war. Princess Veltara was staring at Marcus with something between admiration and fear. How many Korthak are coming to our wedding? About 200,000, Marcus replied casually. Military and civilian. They will be arriving just as the ceremony begins. Queen. Zolthara realized that her future son-in-law had just turned the most dangerous moment of the war into the greatest diplomatic victory in galactic history. The other Korthic commanders will see this as betrayal. She sighed. Yes, Marcus agreed. Which is exactly what I want them to see. Civil war in the Korthak Empire means they stop expanding outward and start fighting each other. Meanwhile, the reasonable Korthak join our cooperative council and become productive members of galactic society. You have been playing a game none of us understood. Admiral Korath said with grudging respect. Not a game, Marcus corrected. A solution. The problem was never that the Korthik were evil. The problem was that they were trapped in a system that only rewarded conquest. I gave some of them a different option. 2 hours later, the wedding ceremony began. The Crystal Cathedral was filled with beings from hundreds of different worlds. In the front row sat former enemies next to each other. Korthak commanders with their insect-like features. Human admirals with their straight-backed military bearing. Zephyrian nobles glowing with crystalline light. As Marcus and Veltara spoke their vows, they were not just joining two people. They were creating something entirely new in galactic history. When the ceremony ended, the wedding feast began. But instead of traditional gifts, every species present signed the Galactic Cooperative Council Charter. They committed to peaceful development, mutual aid, and shared terraforming projects. Queen Zolthara watched from her ceremonial throne as species that had been enemies for centuries shook hands, formed trade agreements, and planned joint colonies. How did you know this would work? She asked Marcus during a quiet moment. I did not know it would work, he replied honestly. But I knew that what we were doing before was not working. Sometimes you have to break the pattern completely before you can see new possibilities. And if you had been wrong? Marcus looked around the Great Hall, where hundreds of species were celebrating together for the first time in galactic history. Your Majesty, the biggest risk is not trying something new and failing. The biggest risk is doing the same thing forever and slowly dying. As the celebration continued into the night, Queen Zalthara realized that this young human had not just ended a war. He had begun a completely new chapter in the story of galactic civilization. And somehow, she was no longer afraid of what came next. Queen Zalthara stood on the observation deck of Crystal Station, the first truly integrated multi-species space station in galactic history. 6 months had passed since the wedding that changed everything. Through the transparent crystal walls, she could see something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Ships from dozens of different species were working together to construct a massive terraforming platform. Human engineering vessels worked alongside Zephyrian crystal growers. Korthic bioships provided raw materials, while Andromedan energy beings powered the construction arrays. The daily reports? Your Majesty, her aide said, approaching with a crystal data tablet. Zalthara took the tablet and began reading. Every day brought news that still seemed like a dream. The Korthek Civil War was ending as more commanders joined the Cooperative Council. The Human Colonial Defense Force had transformed into the Galactic Development Corps, focusing on exploration and terraforming instead of warfare. Former battlefields had become shipping lanes for trade between species. How many species have joined the Council now? She asked. 417, Your Majesty. 3 more applications came in this morning. Zalthara smiled. The Galactic Cooperative Council had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined. What started as a desperate marriage alliance had become the largest peaceful organization in known history. And the terraforming projects? 73 worlds currently under development. The waiting list includes over 200 dead planets that species want converted to habitable worlds. The Queen walked to the central observation area, where a massive holographic display showed the current state of galactic civilization. Green dots marked Council member worlds. Blue dots showed completed terraforming projects. Yellow dots indicated planets under construction. For the first time in decades, there were more green, blue, and yellow dots than red warning signals. Your Majesty, came a familiar voice from behind her. I hope I am not interrupting. Zalthara turned to see Marcus Chun approaching, with Princess Veltara beside him. Her daughter was glowing more brightly than usual, a sign of happiness among their species. Marcus, the Queen said warmly. I was just reviewing the daily reports. 23 new trade agreements signed yesterday. 15 joint research projects approved. And the first graduating class from the Multi-Species Academy. The academy was Veltara's idea, Marcus said, putting his arm around his wife. I just helped with the logistics. Veltara smiled. Teaching young people from different species to work together seemed like the best way to ensure the Council's future. They walked together to the main display, where the holographic galaxy slowly rotated before them. Do you ever miss the simple days? Queen Zalthara asked Marcus. When problems were solved with weapons instead of diplomacy. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Your Majesty, I never thought problems were simple. Weapons just made them look simple. Shoot first, ask questions later. But that approach only creates more problems. And your approach? Ask questions first. Understand the real problem. Then find a solution that works for everyone. As they spoke, a new ship arrived at the station's docking bay. It was unlike anything in the database. Organic curves mixed with crystalline structures and metallic components. That is the first joint-built vessel, Veltara explained. Human engineering, Zephyrian crystal technology, and reformed Korthic biomechanics. The three species that were enemies a year ago just built a ship together. Queen Zalthara watched the strange, beautiful ship dock at the station. Its crew would be equally mixed. Humans, Zephyrians, and Korthic working side by side. "How did you know this would work?" she asked Marcus. "When you first arrived, how did you see all of this?" Marcus looked out at the busy space around the station. Ships coming and going. Species that had never met before working together on joint projects. Former weapons factories now producing terraforming equipment. "I did not see all of this," he admitted. "I just saw that what we were doing was not working." Three species locked in endless war, all of them getting weaker. All of them losing people. He paused, watching a group of mixed species engineers working on a solar collection array. "But I have learned that most problems that seem impossible are actually just patterns that people are afraid to break." Everyone was so focused on fighting that they forgot to ask why they were fighting. And when you asked why, I discovered that everyone wanted the same basic things. Safe homes for their people. Resources for their children. A future that was better than the present. The war was not about incompatible goals. It was about incompatible methods. Queen Zalthara nodded thoughtfully. "So you changed the methods." "We changed the methods," Marcus corrected. "I could not have done any of this alone. I needed partners who were willing to take risks, to try something completely different." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Admiral Karath's image appeared in the holographic display. "Your Majesty, we have received a fascinating communication from the far sector. An unknown species called the Quantum Collective has been observing our terraforming work. They want to discuss joining the Council." "How far away are they?" Zalthara asked. "About 3 months travel at maximum hyperspace speed. But here's the interesting part. They claim to have technology that could reduce terraforming time from years to months." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What do they want in return?" "Cultural exchange programs. They say they have been isolated for centuries and want to learn about art, music, and literature from other species." Queen Zalthara looked at Marcus. "What do you think?" "I think the galaxy just got larger and more interesting," he replied with a smile as they discussed the implications of contact with the Quantum Collective. Queen Zalthara reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, a message about an unknown alien species would have meant preparing for war. Now it meant preparing for new possibilities. "Marcus," she said during a quiet moment, "do you think this will last? The peace, the cooperation, all of it?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the mixed crews working on the terraforming platform outside. "Your Majesty, I think cooperation is harder than war in some ways. War only requires you to be afraid of your enemies. Cooperation requires you to trust your friends. But I also think it creates something that war never can." "What is that?" "Hope," Marcus said simply. "When people are working together to build something new, they start to believe that the future can be better than the past. And when people believe that, they make choices that create the future they want to see." Zalthara touched her husband's hand. "And what future do you want to see?" Marcus looked out at the galaxy display, with its growing network of green, blue, and yellow dots representing cooperation and creation instead of destruction. "I want to see what happens when every species in the galaxy has enough resources, enough safe territory, and enough hope that they stop thinking about conquest and start thinking about what they could build together." Queen Zalthara felt her crystal form glow brighter with satisfaction. "You think big, young human." "Your Majesty, the problems were big. The solutions had to be big too." As the day shifted to evening, the three of them remained on the observation deck, watching the constant activity of ships and workers outside. Construction platforms building new habitats. Science vessels returning from exploration missions. transport ships carrying refugees to their new homes on terraformed worlds. "There is one thing I still do not understand," Queen Zalthara said eventually. "What is that?" "When you first arrived, I thought you were dangerous. Now I know you are dangerous. But you are not dangerous in the way I expected." Marcus laughed softly. "How am I dangerous?" "You make people believe that impossible things are possible. You make them willing to take risks they would never take otherwise. You change the way they think about problems they assumed could never be solved. And that is dangerous?" Queen Zalthara looked at her daughter and son-in-law. Then, out at the galaxy that was transforming before their eyes. "Marcus Chun, you are the most dangerous person in the galaxy because you convinced an entire civilization to hope for something better. And when people start hoping, they start working to make that hope real. Is that bad?" Valtara asked with a smile. "No," Queen Zalthara replied, her crystal form glowing with warmth. "It is the best kind of dangerous there is." As the three of them stood together watching the galaxy change, Queen Zalthara realized that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology or their fighting ability. It was their stubborn refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they had always been taught, and sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Outside the observation deck, construction continued on the next terraforming platform. Soon it would join the growing fleet of ships working to turn dead worlds into gardens. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. And for the first time in her long life, Queen Zalthara could not wait to see what happened next.